The stone sat in the lowest tray of the display case, where the store kept the things nobody asked about twice. It was ugly in a way that made people dismiss it quickly. A fist-sized lump with a dirty gray skin, a few brown mineral stains, and one dull green vein running along the side like a bruise that had never healed. Under the soft white lights of Marlowe and Finch fine gems, surrounded by diamonds that looked like frozen stars and sapphires arranged in velvet rows, it seemed almost offensive. That was why Claire Marlowe had put it there, not because she was careless. Because she had been taught that luxury had a language, and that stone did not speak it. Claire stood behind the central counter at 9:30 on a rainy Tuesday morning, checking a shipment invoice with one hand and holding a lukewarm coffee in the other. Her navy blazer was pressed, her hair was pinned into a neat twist, and the thin gold watch on her wrist had belonged to her father before the store belonged to her. Every morning she touched that watch once before unlocking the front door. It was a habit. Her father had built Marlowe and Finch from a narrow repair bench into one of Boston's most respected private gem dealers. He had known old money, new money, nervous fiancés, divorced collectors, museum curators, and men who bought jewelry when apologies no longer worked. He had known stones the way some people knew faces. Claire knew business. She knew margins, insurance policies, client behavior, auction timing, staff training, and how to keep a luxury room from feeling like a shop. She had studied gemology, yes, but mostly because people expected the owner to have letters after her name. Her real skill was control, clean counters, quiet voices, no surprises. The ugly stone was a surprise she had chosen to bury. It had arrived 3 months earlier in a mixed estate lot from a retired mineral collector in Maine. The lot included a few decent tourmalines, some unremarkable garnets, and the gray-green lump wrapped in old newspaper from 1987. Their junior gemologist Paige had tested the surface, shrugged, and called it probably altered beryl, low value, maybe decorative. Claire had not argued. She priced it at $1,000 because the estate contract required every piece to be catalogued and offered. Nobody bought it. Nobody even wanted to hold it. Then at 10:07, the bell above the front door gave a soft silver sound, and the man walked in carrying rainwater on his boots. He was broad-shouldered but slightly bent, as if years of leaning over work tables had taught his spine a quieter shape. His canvas jacket was faded at the elbows, his beard needed trimming, and his gray hair curled damply from beneath a wool cap. One shoelace was tied with a knot so old it had become part of the shoe. In one hand he held a paper cup of gas station coffee. In the other a folded city map with oil stains along the edge. Claire looked up. So did everyone else. Trevor Bell, her senior sales associate, gave the man the quick smile reserved for people who had entered the wrong door. Paige glanced at the boots first, then the jacket, then the wet marks spreading across the polished floor. The man removed his cap. "Morning," he said. His voice was low, tired but not weak. Claire placed her invoice down. "Good morning. Can we help you find something?" The man looked around the showroom slowly, not like a thief, not like a tourist. More like someone listening to a room before speaking to it. "I'd like to look at your loose stones," he said. Trevor stepped forward. "We have several categories: engagement diamonds, colored sapphires, investment-grade rubies, collector minerals. Do you have a budget in mind?" The man took a careful sip of coffee, a modest one. Trevor's smile tightened. "Of course." Claire heard the tone and did not correct it. That was her first mistake. The man moved toward the back case, where the collector's stones sat beneath the least flattering lights in the store. He did not stop at the Burmese ruby. He passed the Montana sapphires without leaning down. He ignored the polished Colombian emerald crystal that most clients photographed before asking the price. Then he stopped. His eyes settled on the ugly gray stone. The room seemed to lower its volume around him. "What's this one?" he asked. Paige looked over from her workstation. "That? Estate piece. Low-grade beryl, maybe treated. Interesting shape, not much jewelry value." The man did not answer. He leaned closer, not touching the glass. His eyes moved across the stone's surface with tiny, disciplined shifts. He studied the green vein, the fractured rind, the brown staining near one end, the small patch where someone decades earlier had polished a window no wider than a thumbnail. Claire noticed his hands then. They were rough, yes, but not clumsy. The nails were short and clean. The skin at his fingertips carried old cuts, healed into pale lines. His right thumb had a slight burn scar near the knuckle, the kind made by heat, tools, or impatience. He pointed, but not at the green vein. "At the back," he said. "Is that a natural skin or a re-cemented break?" Page blinked. Trevor gave a short laugh. "Sir, it's a decorative specimen." The man kept looking at Page. "Could I see it out of the case?" Claire hesitated. The store had rules. Any stone above a certain value was shown at a seated counter with a tray, gloves, and camera coverage. This one was listed at $1,000. Technically, it barely mattered. Still, something about the man's stillness made her uneasy. She unlocked the case herself. When she placed the stone on the black velvet pad, it looked even worse under open lot, dull, muddy, heavy with silence. Trevor folded his arms. Page stayed near the microscope, curious despite herself. The man did not pick it up immediately. First, he wiped his fingers on a clean handkerchief taken from inside his jacket. Then he lifted the stone with both hands, supporting its weight as if it had a preferred way of being held. He tilted it toward the ceiling lights, then away from them. He turned it half an inch and stopped. His face changed almost nothing, but Claire saw his breathing slow. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out a battered jeweler's loop. The brass rim had worn smooth from years of use. It was not expensive looking, it was simply old. Trevor laughed under his breath. "Came prepared." The man ignored him. Through the loop he studied the tiny polished window, then the brown stain, then a shadow line beneath the rind that Claire had never noticed. He lowered the loop, placed the stone down, and looked at the handwritten tag. "Estate mineral specimen, possible beryl, $1,000. "Is this price correct?" he asked. Claire felt a small irritation, not because of the question, because of the way he asked it. Gently, as if giving her a chance to step back from a ledge she did not know she was standing on. "Yes," she said. "It's been evaluated." "By whom?" Page's face reddened. "By our in-house team." The man nodded once. "Has it been sent to a laboratory?" Trevor made a small sound. "For a $1,000 rock?" A couple browsing wedding bands near the front turned to listen. Claire's posture stiffened. Her father's watch felt suddenly tight on her wrist. "No," she said. "It did not warrant lab certification." The man looked at the stone again. Rain tapped softly against the front windows. Somewhere in the back office the printer started and jammed after 2 pages, making its usual angry clicking sound. "I'll buy it," he said. Trevor's eyebrows rose. "You're serious?" "Yes. Final sale on estate mineral specimens. I understand. No returns after independent testing. I understand that too." Claire studied him. "Sir, I should be clear, we are not representing this as a fine gemstone. It has surface damage, unknown treatment history, and limited commercial appeal. That's fair. You still want it?" He took a folded envelope from inside his jacket. The envelope was soft from being handled. Inside were 10 crisp $100 bills. "Cash, all right?" The store went quiet for half a second. Then Trevor smiled, "Not kindly." "Absolutely." He rang up the sale with theatrical care, as if the receipt were part of a private joke. Paige pressed her lips together. One of the junior assistants, Madison, covered a laugh with her hand and pretended to cough. The wedding band couple watched with open amusement. "Would you like gift wrapping?" Trevor asked. The man looked at him. "No." Trevor slid the stone into a plain cardboard gem box, then into a small Marlowe and Finch bag with tissue paper. The bag looked absurd around it, like a tuxedo on a shovel. Claire handed him the receipt. "May I have your name for our records?" The man paused. "Ellie Ward." Paige looked up sharply, but only for a second. Then her face settled into uncertainty, as if the name had brushed against something in her memory and disappeared. Trevor wrote it down with a flourish. "Enjoy your rock, Mr. Ward." This time Madison did laugh, a bright little sound. Eli Ward held the bag by its string handles and turned toward the door. He did not defend himself. He did not look back with secret triumph. He simply put on his cap, stepped into the rain, and walked past the window until the gray city swallowed him. The laughter came fully after he left. Trevor leaned against the counter. $1,000 for aquarium gravel. Madison shook her head. "I feel bad." "No, you don't," Paige said, though she was smiling too. Claire did not laugh as loudly as the others, but she did allow herself a small breath of relief. A dead inventory item was gone. The estate file could be closed. The ugly stone would no longer insult the case. Still, 10 minutes later, she looked at the receipt, Eli Ward. The name continued to bother her. By lunchtime, the rain had become a silver curtain over Newbury Street. Claire sat in her office with half a turkey sandwich untouched beside her keyboard. Her father's old books lined the wall behind her, most of them with cracked spines and paper labels in his handwriting. She rarely opened them. They belonged to another kind of gem business, one with more patience and less digital inventory. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Paige. "Can you come to the lab room for a second?" Claire frowned and stood. The lab room was not really a lab. It was a narrow room behind the showroom with a microscope, refractometer, scale, UV lamp, thermal tester, and an old desk her father had refused to replace because he liked the burn mark on the corner. Paige was standing by the computer, pale now in a way that made Claire's stomach tighten. "What is it?" Paige pointed at the screen. "I searched the name from the receipt." Claire leaned closer. "Dr. Elias Ward. Former senior consultant, Smithsonian National Gem Collection. Published specialist in rare beryl and emerald formation. Court-recognized expert in gemstone identification and provenance. Former advisor to 3 auction houses." Claire read the lines twice. The room seemed to shrink around the hum of the fluorescent light. "That can't be the same man," Trevor said from the doorway. Nobody had invited him in. Paige clicked another result. A photograph appeared, 10 years old, maybe more. The man in the picture wore a dark suit and stood beside a display case at an international mineral symposium. His beard was shorter, his hair was darker, his eyes were exactly the same. Claire felt heat move up her throat. Madison whispered, "Oh." Trevor shifted his weight. "So he used to be somebody, doesn't mean the rock was anything." Paige did not answer. She clicked another link. An article appeared about the Ward method, a controversial but respected field identification approach for emerald-bearing host rock in heavily weathered specimens. It mentioned trace chromium zoning, old mine residue, skin texture, and growth line distortion under partial windows. Claire turned away from the screen. Her father's watch ticked against her wrist. "What exactly did we sell?" she asked. Paige swallowed. "I don't know." That was the honest answer. For the next hour, Claire tried to continue working. She met a client interested in an anniversary bracelet. She approved an insurance update. She signed a courier form. She corrected Madison's wording in a client email because rare opportunity sounded desperate. All the while, the empty tray in the back case pulled at her attention. At 2:30, a call came into the store's main line. Madison answered it. "Marlowe and Finch Fine Gems, this is Madison speaking." She listened, her face changed. "Of course, one moment please." She pressed hold and looked at Claire. "It's Hartwell Auction Group." Claire picked up the phone in her office. "This is Claire Marlowe." A woman's voice came through, polished and alert. "Marlowe, this is Rebecca Sloan, Senior Mineral Specialist at Hartwell. I'm calling regarding an estate mineral specimen sold from your store this morning." Claire closed her eyes for half a second. "Yes. Did a Mr. Elias Ward purchase it? I'm not sure I can discuss client transactions." "I understand. He has authorized us to contact you because the stone may have provenance relevance tied to a lost collection from the 1940s. We're trying to confirm chain of custody." Claire gripped the phone. "Provenance relevance?" There was a pause. "Mrs. Marlowe, has your team reviewed the Baines shipment records from the estate lot?" Claire looked through the glass wall at Paige, who was standing very still. "No," Claire said, "we received standard estate documentation. The specimen may match descriptions of an uncut emerald-bearing crystal aggregate removed from the old Crabtree district before the mine closures. There are only a few references to it. Most people assumed it had been destroyed or misidentified decades ago." Claire's office suddenly felt too warm. "Are you saying it's emerald?" "I'm saying Mr. Ward requested secure preliminary examination. I can't discuss valuation yet. Then why call me?" Another pause. "Because he asked us to make sure your staff understood that the sale was legal, documented, and voluntary. He was very specific about that." Claire stared at her father's books. "He said that?" "Yes, he also said no one at your store should be accused of misconduct. His words were, they priced what they believed they had." The sentence landed harder than any accusation. After the call, Claire sat alone for several minutes. Outside her office, Trevor was trying to sound unconcerned and failing. "It's probably a publicity thing," he said. "Auction houses love drama." Page did not respond. Claire opened the estate file. The paperwork was thin, too thin, a few photographs, a collector's handwritten inventory, several boxes listed together under vague descriptions. She found the line item after 3 minutes. Lot 17B, weathered green-gray crystal mass, acquired from E. Bain's collection, 1962. Under that, in faint pencil, almost erased by time, someone had written, "Crabtree, Ward should see." Claire read it again, "Ward should see." Her father would have noticed that. The thought came so sharply she had to put the paper down. By evening, the story had begun moving without permission. A jewelry blogger posted first, then a collector forum. Then someone found the receipt image from the store's internal sales system, posted by an employee who thought she was being funny before understanding what she had shared. The post showed the item description, the price, and the name Marlowe and Finch. By 9 that night, Claire was standing barefoot in her kitchen, still wearing her work blouse, scrolling through comments beneath a headline that made her stomach twist. Prestige Boston Gem Store sells possible $1 million specimen for $1,000. Her apartment was quiet except for the refrigerator and the rain tapping the fire escape. A bowl of soup sat cold on the counter. Her father's watch lay beside it because she could not bear the weight of it on her wrist. Then her phone rang. It was Hartwell again. "Rebecca Sloan did not waste time. Preliminary testing is complete." Claire held the edge of the counter. "And it is not ordinary beryl." Claire said nothing. "It appears to be an exceptionally rare emerald crystal aggregate with unusual optical zoning and possible historic provenance. We need full lab confirmation, but Mr. Ward's identification appears correct." Claire looked at the cold soup. "What kind of value are we discussing?" Rebecca exhaled softly. "If provenance confirms, it may be one of the most significant North American emerald specimens ever documented. Museums will be interested, private collectors too. How much?" "It would be irresponsible to give a number tonight. Please." A long pause. "8 figures is possible." Claire sat down before her knees asked her to. The next morning, every face in the store looked different under the lights. Trevor wore his best suit. Madison had red eyes. Page had arrived early and pulled every record from the estate lot. Claire had not slept. She had spent 4 hours reading articles by Elias Ward, then another hour watching an old lecture where he spoke about stones the way her father once had. Not as products, as evidence. At 10, a black sedan stopped outside the store. Eli Ward stepped out wearing the same canvas jacket. This time no one laughed. He entered with Rebecca Sloan from Hartwell and a younger man carrying a hard case. The bell above the door sounded too delicate for the moment. Claire met him near the central counter. "Dr. Ward." He looked uncomfortable with the title. "Ellie is fine." "I owe you an apology." Trevor looked at the floor. Madison's hands were clasped so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Eli glanced around the showroom, not triumphantly, almost sadly. "I didn't come for that." Claire felt the words catch in her chest. "Then why did you come?" He placed a folder on the counter. "Your estate file is missing pages. Hartwell found matching archive scans from a university collection. Your father corresponded with Everett Baines about that specimen in 1996. Claire's breath stopped. "My father?" Eli opened the folder. Inside were photocopies of letters. Her father's handwriting appeared in blue ink on one page, unmistakable and slanted slightly left. "Claire, if this ever turns up, don't let the skin fool you. Some stones hide because the world has handled them badly." Claire touched the paper but did not lift it. Her father had written her name. Eli waited. "He never showed me this," she said. "He may never have had the chance." Her father had died suddenly 5 years earlier, collapsing in the repair room over a tray of loose pearls. Claire had found his coffee still warm beside him. For months afterward she had hated that room. Then she had renovated everything except the desk with the burn mark. Eli's voice softened. "Robert Marlowe was one of the few dealers I trusted." Claire looked up. "You knew him?" "A little. Enough." "Then why didn't you say something yesterday?" Trevor shifted. The question hung there. Eli looked at the empty display case where the stone had been. "Because if I had said my name at the beginning, I wouldn't have learned anything true." The words did not accuse. That made them worse. Paige stepped forward, her voice shook. "Dr. Ward, I misidentified the specimen, I'm sorry." Eli turned to her. "You made a surface call without enough data, that happens." "I should have sent it out." "Yes," Paige flinched. "But you asked the right question after I left," he added. "That matters too." Trevor finally spoke. "Look, I said some things. It was a sales floor joke. We didn't know who you were." Eli studied him for a moment. "No," he said. "You didn't know what I was worth." The room went silent. Not because he had raised his voice, because he had not. Rebecca placed the hard case on the counter and opened it. Inside, the ugly stone rested in custom foam, transformed only by context. It was still gray, still rough, still unimpressive to an untrained eye. Then the younger specialist switched off the overhead display light and positioned a narrow fiber-optic beam at the polished window. Green fire appeared inside the stone, not bright at first, deep layered, like a forest seen through ancient water. The glow moved through fractures and planes, revealing structures hidden beneath the weathered skin. Paige covered her mouth. Madison whispered something that sounded like a prayer. Claire did not move. The stone had been in her store for 3 months. She had walked past it every day. Eli leaned slightly over the case. The outer rind is weathering, iron staining, some surface damage. But the internal crystal body is intact in ways I didn't expect. The growth lines are old, natural. The chromium response is extraordinary. Trevor stared at it. "So it's really worth millions?" Eli looked at the green light. "It is worth study first." That answer embarrassed Trevor more than any number could have. Over the next 2 weeks, Marlowe and Finch became a story people wanted to tell because it made them feel clever. News vans parked outside, clients called pretending concern while fishing for details. An old customer sent flowers with a card that said "Rough Week." Claire threw it away after reading it twice. The store's reputation did not collapse, it bruised. That was worse in some ways. Bruises stayed visible long enough for people to ask. Claire suspended Trevor after discovering he had encouraged Madison to post the receipt image. Madison cried in Claire's office and admitted she had wanted her friends to laugh at the weird guy. Paige requested additional lab training and offered to pay for part of it herself. Claire refused the money and approved the course. Then she called Eli. He did not answer the first time, or the second. On Friday evening, after closing, Claire found him in the place Rebecca said he might be, a small basement workshop in Cambridge beneath a watch repair shop. There was no sign on the street door, only a brass buzzer labeled E. Ward. He opened the door holding a mug with a crack down one side. "Miss Marlowe, Claire." He stepped aside. The workshop smelled of dust, coffee, old paper, and machine oil. Not glamorous, not poor. Simply used. Wooden drawers lined one wall, each labeled in pencil. A microscope sat under a task lamp. Beside it lay a faded photograph of a woman standing beside a younger Eli near a mountain road, both of them squinting into sunlight. Claire noticed a child's drawing tape near the shelves, a green rock with a crown on it. "My granddaughter," Eli said, following her eyes. "She thinks all stones are royalty." Claire smiled despite herself. "She may be better at this than we are. She charges less." There it was. The first small kindness. Claire placed a folder on his work table. "I brought copies of everything from the estate lot. No conditions, no legal angle. I thought you should have them." Eli looked at the folder but did not touch it. "Your lawyers approve that? No good." She almost laughed, but it caught in her throat. "I also came to ask what happens next. With the stone, with us." Eli sat slowly as if his knees had a private argument with stairs. "There doesn't have to be an us. My father wrote my name in that letter. He did, and I missed it." Eli looked at the cracked mug in his hands. "People miss what they are trained not to see." Claire absorbed that. "My father trained me." "No," Eli said. "The market did." That answer stayed between them. On the work table lay the old brass loop he had used in the store. Claire noticed the initials scratched into the rim, M.W. "Who was M.W.?" she asked. Eli's thumb moved over the letters. "My wife, Margaret Ward, field geologist. She had better eyes than I did." Had he nodded once? Claire did not offer the automatic apology people gave when death entered a room. She had received too many of those herself. Instead, she looked at the loop. She found things. She found what other people stepped over. The workshop grew quiet. Eli opened the folder at last and examined the estate documents. After a few minutes, he stopped at a shipping note Claire had barely noticed. "This helps," he said. "With provenance? Yes, I'm glad." He looked up. "Are you?" Claire answered too quickly. "Of course." Eli waited. She sat across from him. "No," she said finally, "not completely. I want to be, but part of me keeps calculating what I lost." "That's honest. It's ugly. It's human." Claire looked down at her hands. Her nails were perfect. Her fingers had no scars. For the first time in years, she wondered if she had mistaken polish for mastery. "My father would be ashamed," she said. Eli's expression changed almost sharply. "No," she looked up. "He'd be disappointed by the carelessness, not by the loss. He lost money in his life. Everyone in stones does. He would be ashamed only if you learned nothing and blamed everyone else." Claire swallowed. Outside, a train rumbled faintly underground. "What would you do?" she asked. "With the store? With the stone?" Eli leaned back. "I would not sell it privately. I'd place it where people can study it. A museum, maybe a public-private arrangement. The right auction could make history. But history shouldn't vanish into someone's vault. You paid for it. I did. You can do whatever you want." He nodded. "That's the trouble with ownership. It tells you what you can do, not what you should do." A month later, Hartwell held a private presentation for curators, collectors, and press under controlled lighting. They called the stone the Baines Ward Emerald Aggregate, pending final naming rights. Eli had refused to put his name first. Rebecca told Claire this with visible frustration. "He said he only recognized it," she said. "He didn't make it." Claire attended because Eli had left one invitation at her store with no note. The presentation room was full of people who knew how to whisper with money. Museum directors, mineral collectors, auction specialists, 2 billionaires pretending not to notice each other. Paige stood beside Claire, nervous but determined. Madison had not come. Trevor had resigned the day his suspension ended. When the lights dimmed and the stone appeared on the screen, nobody laughed. A specialist explained the weathered rind, the unusual chromium signature, the historic chain of custody, the old letters, the almost erased pencil note. Then Rebecca invited Eli to speak. He walked to the podium in a clean shirt and the same old jacket. The audience adjusted itself around his presence. Eli looked at his notes for a moment, then folded them. "This specimen survived because several people misunderstood it," he said. "A miner who didn't cut it. A collector who didn't clean it, a dealer who didn't sell it quickly, a family who didn't throw it away, a store that priced it low enough for an old man with cash in an envelope." Soft laughter moved through the room. Claire felt her face burn, but Eli was not looking at her cruelly. He continued, "That should humble us. Not because the market missed a price. The market misses prices every day. It should humble us because expertise without patience becomes decoration." The room went still. Then he said, "Robert Marlowe once wrote that some stones hide because the world has handled them badly. I think people do that too." Claire looked down. Her father's watch was on her wrist again. After the presentation, a museum consortium made the first formal offer. It was not the highest. A private collector offered more within 20 minutes. Another collector offered more than that, quietly, through a representative who looked bored by the size of the number. Eli listened to each offer. Then he chose the museum arrangement. The final structure allowed the specimen to be publicly displayed, studied, insured, and occasionally loaned. The price was still enormous. Not the wildest number whispered online, but enough to make headlines again. This time the headline was different. "Retired gem expert saves historic emerald specimen from obscurity." Claire read it in her office the next morning and noticed what it did not say. It did not say a foolish store owner lost a fortune. It did not say a poor-looking man fooled arrogant jewelers. It did not turn anyone into a cartoon. That felt like Eli's doing. 2 days later, a package arrived at Marlowe and Finch. Inside was the plain cardboard gem box they had used for the stone, empty now. On top of it lay the original receipt and a handwritten note. "Claire, your father once gave me back a specimen I had undervalued when I needed money more than pride. He told me, a clean deal is not always the same thing as a complete one. The sale was legal. The lesson was more expensive. Use it well." Below the note was a check, not for half the value. Not for some dramatic, impossible gesture. For $50,000. The memo line read, "Gemological Training Fund." Claire sat with the check for a long time. Then she called Paige into the office. By winter, the back case at Marlowe and Finch had changed. The ugly tray was gone. In its place was a small educational display under warmer light, rough stones. Misidentified stones, treated stones, a cracked quartz crystal beside a flawless diamond. A sign, written in plain language, explained that value did not always announce itself clearly. Claire had argued with the sign maker for 20 minutes over one sentence. Then she removed the sentence herself. It had sounded too much like marketing. On a cold Thursday evening, just before closing, a construction worker came in with a small velvet pouch. His jacket was dusty. His boots left pale marks on the floor. He apologized twice before reaching the counter. "My grandmother left me these," he said. "Probably nothing." Madison, who had returned part-time after writing Claire a letter that was better than any apology spoken under pressure, smiled gently. "Nothing is still worth looking at carefully," she said. Claire heard it from across the room. She looked up. Paige was already pulling out a tray. The construction worker relaxed by half an inch. Outside, snow moved through the Boston streetlights in slow white pieces. Traffic hissed along the wet road. Somewhere in the repair room, the old printer jammed again, and no one rushed to fix it. Claire touched her father's watch, not for luck this time, for memory. That night, after everyone left, she stood alone in front of the educational case. The store was quiet enough that she could hear the building settle. She thought about the ugly stone, now locked in a museum vault until its public unveiling. She thought about Eli in his basement workshop, drinking coffee from a cracked mug, probably forgetting dinner while reading mineral reports. She thought about her father's handwriting. Some stones hide because the world has handled them badly. Claire turned off the lights one row at a time. At the front door, she paused and looked back at the showroom she had inherited, protected, polished, and nearly misunderstood into something smaller than it was meant to be. The counter still gleamed. The velvet was still smooth. The diamond still caught the last light beautifully. But now, in the back, under a modest lamp, a rough gray stone with no market value sat where everyone could see it. Claire had bought it herself from a roadside mineral stand for $12. It was not rare. It was not important. That was exactly why she kept it there. Every morning, before the first client arrived, she would unlock the door, touch her father's watch, and look at that stone for one quiet second. Then she would remember to look twice.